Oh, Tomas. It's my favorite part of the week.
I would agree.
You agree that I think it's the best time of the week?
I think that's a true statement.
Okay, great. Ravin invests in, I don't know what it is, technology.
Autonomy.
Reimagining. I can't read, Tomas. That's too early. Reimagining rural America. And football players who should be in jail. Or at least one football player.
Yep.
How's it going?
It's rough.
This music's going longer than usual, which people
Sure.
listening will not understand me saying because I will cut the music shorter.
We missed a week last week.
We did. Let's start with that.
We had to do twice as long this week to make up for it, but with the music. We won't talk for twice as long. That would be
Right. That'd be
quite
beyond
scary.
the cameras that we have beyond their time. I'd have
That
to
is
get
true.
up and restart them all.
Yeah.
Oh, Tomas, how you doing?
Camera.
I missed my favorite part of the week last week.
I know we did.
That was
Yeah,
my
that's
fault.
Unfortunate. No, we had a meeting at one of
No,
our
it was
different
my
locations.
fault. I
and-
was 2 days off last week, and I was just being as lazy
all
as
right.
could be.
No, that's all right. We're gonna make it work though.
Well, we are glad, though, that if you are listening, that you are listening.
yeah.
So thank
Glad
you.
you're back
Thanks
with
for
us.
joining us. Let me just start off with this. Let me start off before we get into these articles that if you miss episode 40 of Regular Plow Talk next week on Monday, you're missing out. You could go to all your festivities. You could go to your Thanksgiving. You could go out and shop on Friday. You could do a lot of stuff on Saturday. And if you have yet to listen by that time to episode 40, your holiday cheer will be missing an enriching aspect.
If
would
you
otherwise
desire, they say that laughter is healthy. It's good for the soul.
Oh, man.
It adds time onto your life, right?
Right.
Well, you will have a lot of time added after
Yes.
watching episode 40.
At least a decade.
I was not a part of it, but I have heard
You've heard
stories
tell.
from
Right. Yeah.
from the session, and the one photo kind of says it all. And
Oh, that was just, I could have had 100 photos,
Mm-hmm.
snapshots of that whole moment. We were laughing like that the majority of the time, I believe. And
Yeah.
it's like a hour 15-minute episode.
Yeah,
You don't have to
longer
listen to
than
the whole
most.
thing, but if you want to at least listen to that first 30 minutes, and you will hopefully have a good chuckle.
even if you aren't familiar with the Bain equipment history and the heritage that we have here, going back to the old Wingate days, if you had a dealership that you dealt with back in the 80s and the 70s,
Early 90s is what we were talking.
you can reminisce
Yeah.
and probably make some correlations there, because that early 90s, I can't believe that.
It was early and mid 90s, even late 90s were mostly. So anyway, let me get to the point of what it even is. What we did was we brought in Brian Verhey, Mark Fruits, both who have contributed before in a somewhat more serious manner. My brother, Jason, my dad called in. He was in Phoenix. He's back now today, but he was in Phoenix during the time. And then we also had, eventually Matt Austin came in at the end of it. He walked in and we had a few more laughs with him. But anyway, the whole point behind that one was Thanksgiving is coming up this next week. And so we thought it'd be fun to do something just fun for an episode, kind of to go along with, a week off and everybody being happy to get to eat a bunch of food and all that good stuff. So we talked mainly about the pranks that these guys used to pull. And it was, as Tomas was saying, I'm a healthier man for having sat through it. My heart is feeling much better now, having laughed as much as I did. So check that out Monday. And now that we've spent 3 minutes explaining that, let's jump in to Ravin invests in autonomy.
Yeah,
Tomas,
let's
you
do
tell
it.
me something about it.
Sure. So, article here on AgWeb really just dives into Ravin and their expansion into different technology with acquiring some different technology companies. So, Ravin has acquired Smart Ag. It's a startup.
Explain what Ravin is, even.
So,
Why somebody that may, be a customer of Bain Welker or
Sure.
whatever may know Ravin.
Ravin is kind of they're a technology company, but they have a monitoring system The one now is the Viper Pro, I believe. I may say maybe
I would have no
off,
idea.
but
You're the
it's
man for that.
they've really made their name with the application world, the sprayer world. So Brian Verhey's very
Gotcha.
familiar
We
with
should have had
Raven,
him on. Yeah.
and so we use Raven monitors in all of our sprayers that we sell, and different things like that. But this is another example where even Raven's a big company, but they're not the biggest company in the world. But they're investing and purchasing other groups to try to continue to push the envelope here with the autonomous movement kind of happening
one more piece
in
of the puzzle
agriculture.
there to that whole autonomy
Yeah.
thing we're heading toward. It just goes to show once again we are going there, right?
Mm-hmm.
If anybody has their doubts, it's going there.
Yeah. So executive director of Raven Autonomy, Wade Robbie, has a quote in this article that we'll link to the podcast here, but it says digital agriculture, precision ag, and machine autonomy will all work in conjunction to be the next big movement in agriculture. We believe that autonomy will be deployed differently by crop type and by geography, and Raven's goal is to be on the forefront of what's driving the future of ag.
Mm-hmm.
And we have talked multiple times on this podcast about different things happening and changing with technology in agriculture, and this is just
IBM was our first Friday on the Fly, right?
Yep.
They've been making a kind of a big deal about that recently. I'm surprised we kind of got what do they call that when you get the first little spot on it before anybody else does?
Oh no, we're ahead of our time.
There you go. We'll take that.
We had
we were ahead of the rush.
Ahead of the rush
of talking about that with Yara International. So yeah, we're heading toward autonomy for sure, and it's just really it's about time, and it's about, I would say, the legislation and such that would have to. Is that even the right? Am I using that? It's still not enough caffeine in the system yet. But what they do mention, by the way, did you already talk about how? I don't think you did. Shows how much I'm paying attention. Sorry, but their view here with building equipment that is autonomous is to have separate. So what do we think of today? We think of having to have a tractor with a planter, or a tractor with a tillage unit, or a sprayer. With these autonomous implements, or a combine with a different head on the front. With these autonomous implements, though, they're talking about having just one unit for each task, basically. So you have a seeder, as they say in this paragraph, a sprayer, a spreader, etc. So you're eliminating the need for that front tractor, right, to be pulling anything, and you're also able to kind of make these units a little smaller because you don't have the front cab like on a sprayer, stuff like that. So it's just interesting to think what they're going to look like and how they're going to have all these different specified implements. And as well, I imagine some of these will be like transformers.
Right.
In that they'll be able to do multiple tasks, right? So
one of the pictures in the article that's linked here is the DOT robot, or the DOT robot, which Raven is now a majority owner of DOT Technology, and it looks very foreign to what we would consider a
looks like what went to Mars
machine. Yeah, something like that.
And to correct myself, by the way, what they're talking about in separate implements is that unit hooking up to those separate implements. So you have one unit, kind of like your tractor, I guess, but that can be fitted to do all these other tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm sure we'll continue to talk about it because it's changing all the time, and
right.
It's something that's going to drive the future of this industry that we're involved with. So
yep. So moving on, reimagining rural America. How can small towns survive? This is something of interest to Tomas and I because we both come from small towns, as well as you've heard from old Pepe Myers, Samuel Myers, on one of the episodes of the regular Plow Talk. And we're all three from small towns. As we've talked about, Bain Equipment sales started in Wingate, Indiana, which at its highest watermark, I would say, probably had 450 or 500 people living in it.
People,
So, this touches home with us, and I'm sure with a lot of other listeners out there and people from rural America. Tomas, what's the article getting at here?
The article, it's about a book. Andrew McCrae wrote a book called The Total Town Makeover. And
rethinking business, community, and home in small town America.
Small town Shickley, Nebraska has around 300 people, but it's a multi-million-dollar town when you
Nice.
count the size of endowment that the town citizens have raised to support local projects. So 300 people is very similar to Wingate, right, where we grew up
Probably 200,
around.
250 at the most right now. Yeah.
It's just amazing how, and we've had conversations before, how small towns are kind of dying off, right? Everybody has to go to a different place to get the things they need every day. We don't even have the
Can't compete with
the
a
blanket
Walmart,
necessities
right?
that we have. Yeah,
Yeah. Small mom and pop can't
in the small
compete.
small town. But this book was written in this town of Shickley, Nebraska. Read the book, and their town leadership really developed a strategic plan on how they were going to maintain their town and how they were going to grow. What was the vision that they're going to have to make sure that their little town is thriving? And it says by the goal of its endowment is to reach $8 million by the end of 2020.
Nice.
Which is insane.
So they mentioned some points evidently that the author says to consider. Quoting, I think, the author here, there's no right or wrong way to accomplish the total town makeover, but I've found some common steps successful towns often take, he says. And then they list some ideas here. I'll just give one or two of these. First one is, does your town have an endowment or other sources of funding to provide seed money for projects or matching funds for grants? Just as a person needs a savings account, endowments serve much the same purpose for a community. Skipping down a few, are you using newspapers and social media to communicate? Provider progress updates, show pictures, build momentum. Social media allows you to connect with people who might not live nearby but have a connection to the town and will support your efforts. So I think that's actually an important point. The point I was going to bring up is that I think small towns are in the perfect position now to make a comeback because of the global market. I don't know if I've brought this up before. I know you and I have talked about it just in conversation, but think about all of the trades and everything else that have come back. I can watch on YouTube along with 300,000 other people who are subscribed to the guy's page, or 1 million now, I think. I can watch this guy over in Latvia build an axe or a knife or something else, and they're selling these knives for like $1,000. Now, the town he's in is a village, what you could actually call like a little village, with certainly no more than 100 people in it. So small town, small country, global market because of social media, because of the internet. And I think that small towns nowadays, if people who desire to build up their small towns, like say you and I went back to Wingate, Tomas, which we're not really far from, and we wanted to bring Wingate back, we could fairly easily do that if we had our own business, right? If younger folks or whoever wanted to move back into a small town, open their own business where maybe they have a storefront eventually, but to start with, they just start investing in their town with the revenue that they get from this global market, right? So maybe they're donating to the local baseball field. They're trying to drive something to bring people back to the community. And I think, again, just to say it one more time, the global market is so vast now with Amazon and with, you can get on Etsy and sell your own stuff, right? You can start all these different things. And because of social media, like what they mentioned, you can reach literally around the world. And you can do it you don't have to be in a metropolis anymore. You don't have to be in an LA or in a New York or even in Indianapolis. You can be in Wingate.
It's almost counterintuitive where you can be successful in an arena where you're not having that personal contact with people while contributing back to a small town community where you want to have places where people congregate and that sense of community there, right? If you have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, you don't personally know all 1 million people. Yeah. But I could know all 200 people in Wingate.
Exactly.
Right? And we can all meet at the restaurant, or we can all go to the same church, or we can all do all these different things and have that tight-knit community with the park and the whatever. Yeah. But we're helping sustain that and drive that via this global market, which is now accessible, which 60 years ago or 70 years ago, if you want to talk to Grandma Patricia, she can't even fathom that, right?
It was a big deal to travel to Crawfordsville, which
Wingate
was
had
20 minutes away.
3 grocery stores,
Yep.
and
3 gas
and
stations,
3 gas stations,
restaurants. Yeah.
because people didn't even go to Crawford. Right, it wasn't even.
It was a self-sustained.
It wasn't
place.
even a county market.
Yep.
You know,
Had its own
we didn't
school
even
and all
go
that.
to the south part of the county. So
Yep.
it's just really interesting. This article is really neat, and if you live in a small community and you would like to help propel it into the future, take a read. You might even go and download the book. Read the book.
Might get some ideas there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that should resonate again with farmers out there, part of rural communities, and hopefully things can make a shift for the better for small towns. What do we have for a whiplash, Tomas? We just gonna talk like we know something?
Sure. Yeah, that's what
No,
we
I'm
normally
kidding.
do.
I remember what it is now.
We take it to sports quite a bit because I'm somewhat of a sports nut. But this scenario, unless you're living under a rock, it's kind of one of those that you've at least heard about. It's been all over social media and different things. So the Browns defensive back Myles Garrett and the Steelers quarterback Mason Rudolph here a couple weeks ago had an altercation at the very end of a game that was really a terrible game to watch. And Myles Garrett actually ripped the helmet off of Mason Rudolph and hit him in the head with it.
Not good enough to rip it off his head, but instead had to.
And the picture here, let's just show this to the old camera here. That is not good.
No.
That is not good. So we were talking before we started here, like if we just walked down the street and I decided I wanted to take a blunt object and hit you in the head with it. I saw some guy on a
bike and I take his helmet off his head, rip it off, and then proceed to nail him over the head with it. How quickly would I be in jail?
As soon as the police could get there. Right?
Yeah.
And that guy would press charge. It's just it's unbelievable. How and nobody you were inches away. You could kill a man by hitting him in the head
like
full force with a blunt object.
A 250 to 300 pound defensive back swinging with his might an object that is meant to protect heads from like a car accident, basically, because that's what they get into on the line of scrimmage
all the time.
So we just thought it was interesting that you can actually get away with this type of stuff with just what is, in my opinion, minor being suspended from the game, when in fact that's assault is what that is, right? So it's just interesting that you can get away with that within the sports arena, but if you were out on the street doing the same thing, you would be in jail for 5 years at least.
I do not encourage anybody to go out there and start swinging helmets or bats at anybody.
For sure.
Because it will not go well for you.
No, it will not.
I'm fully confident in that. But Myles Garrett's been suspended indefinitely. What that really means, nobody knows yet. They're going to have to probably put a number on it eventually, but it's not a number that's going to be. There just shouldn't be any. Sports should be a thing that brings people together, unifies people for a cause, right?
Has good, hearty competition.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be competitive. You want your team to win, but there's no reason to start attacking people. But football's a very violent sport.
Yeah, and we could argue as well that, if you go 30 years ago, that football, or 40 years ago, basically everything you were allowed to do back then is now a penalty, right? At one point, a face mask wasn't even a face mask.
Definitely the same thing in basketball, right? Yeah. They talk about if you played down on the block in basketball in the 70s and 80s, you got the tar beat out of you.
3-second zone, you'd get elbowed quickly.
Yeah, elbowed, punched, grabbed, everything. The undertone of this too, and we have to mention it because Myles Garrett is saying that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur at him, which provoked him to then hit him in the head with the helmet. That
justifies almost killing a person. Yeah.
It's just a sad state of where our world's at when we're one. It's a game, and I understand adrenaline is high, but we shouldn't be calling anybody names. Nancy.
At least in that racial tone, right?
Yeah,
you expect to have the bickering.
That's unacceptable.
That makes sense.
But your response to that shouldn't be to assault the man.
Yeah.
And try to hit him in the head with a helmet. So, anyways, it's just
interesting stuff.
It's a whole terrible situation that just gives another black eye to a sport that really hasn't done itself any favors here in the last probably 5-6 years.
And I think it's again interesting though to note that a lot of this stuff was already happening a long time ago. It's just that we're
exposed to it now.
Yeah, we're in a weird state now where everything becomes a huge moment. So, anyway, yep.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Tomas? We're going to try to do
Yeah.
an episode the Wednesday of next week.
Before
So that's a
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving episode for Friday on the Fly. Not sure what we'll talk about, but we're going to do something different, though. We have to do something different for that.
Yeah, we will. I think
figure out
we'll
something,
take that
but,
Thanksgiving approach to it.
so-
We should do that. Maybe reflect a little bit on what we're thankful for. When
Yes, indeed.
we're thankful for a lot. So.
Maybe do like a rapid fire whiplash section or something like that. I don't know. We'll find something
We've
to
talked
do,
about doing like a Yahoo Roulette,
which is just
and
utterly dangerous.
Let's pick a number and just talk about that numbered
Yeah.
article.
Everybody
on
in the
Yahoo.
Bain
And
Welker facility would hate me because of my opinions.
the likelihood of
Yeah.
it not being a political thing would be
Right.
very,
Yeah.
very low. So
Yeah.
it's probably just a good way to get in trouble.
Exactly.
We'll probably not do that. But
And you're
anyways.
in HR, so we have to, All
Yeah,
right. Well,
keep it
again, check out that episode Monday. It will be fun. I hope you have fun with it as much as I did, at least, or at least a little bit. Enjoy that. Listen to the whole thing. There's some gems in there. And join us next week, probably on Wednesday. That's what we're planning for, at least. And if we don't talk to you before then, and even if we do, we'll say it right now. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy a lot of good food. If you're going out for that craziness called Black Friday, stay safe. Don't get in a stupid altercation over some deal. Please, folks, let's act civilized. And have a good time.
Absolutely. Farmers, stay safe out there. Finish up harvest. So
Yes,
it's,
sir.
it's a fun time.
All right. Thank you, Tomas. Per usual. Appreciate you. Glad you came in this morning.
Appreciate you.
All right. Peace out.